You are now listening to the Serious Growth Podcast with your host, Leo Costa Jr.
Welcome to Serious Growth Podcast, where the truth is told. Today on this show, we have Joseph Ortiz. Joseph, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today.
Right on, man. So I see here, I don't think I met you at the Vegas event, did I? Did you come to our booth at all?
I did go to the booth, but I don't believe I met you.
Oh, okay. All right. There were a lot of people that came there, so I mean, I thought I would have recognized you, but I don't think I do. You got the let's see, you won that thing, huh? 2019 Physique Natural Champion.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So this event for you now, in the order, how many shows have you done so far?
I believe that was about my ninth one total.
Ninth one.
Yeah, ninth one total.
And you say here you've been training for 15 years?
Sorry, when I was 13.
13 years old. Yeah, you guys started young, man. When I got into the sport, I didn't start until 27.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, because it was like a total afterthought. I mean, when I was coming through, believe it or not, weight training, especially I was an athlete, weight training was frowned upon in the position that I played. I was a quarterback back then.
Okay, right.
And back, it's really interesting now looking back how weight training and especially sports-specific conditioning is in all aspects of sport.
Yeah.
But back then it was just, for football, it was just a lineman. They said, in fact, if the quarterbacks or wide receivers got in the weight room, they kick us out of there. They punish us for that. Doesn't make any sense. Because I guess in a way, it was a good thing because they just didn't have the knowledge and the information, So, but the sport, and I know, man, for bodybuilding, if you get a lot of guys get started at around 13, 15 years of age. So how did you get into the weight room to begin with?
Yeah, so my older brother, he used to back when I was growing up, he used to live at home, and he actually purchased an Olympic weight bench and all the weights. And whenever he moved out, he left it there. And so I would come home from school, and I would always see all the weights there, and I'm like, man, like I want to learn how to weightlift. And nobody in my family is a bodybuilder. Nobody in my family is big into fitness, like big sports, yeah, but not when it comes to weightlifting.
Yeah.
And so I would literally go to the garage every single day as soon as I would get home from basketball practice in high school, and I would just lift, and I would just do like curls and bench press, and I really had no idea what I was doing, but I just loved the way it felt.
Yeah.
And once I started to build muscle, people obviously at high school, they would start to notice, and kind of, was like a nice confidence builder. I grew up kind of overweight. And so it was a nice shift. And I was like, hey, I like this. I like the way I look. I like the compliments I'm getting, and I like the way I feel. And then of course that transitioned into high school sports. And so I started to, get stronger, run faster, and everything kind of started to mold together. And then after high school, I got a gym membership, and I would literally go up to the biggest guy in the gym and just be like, can I work out with you? And they would look at me and be like, yeah, sure, why not?
Whatever, kid.
Yeah, whatever. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what I would do, and that's how I learned. And from there on, I started to buy the muscle fitness magazines and men's health magazines. And I would be at work. I would take these magazines. I would literally highlight all these different articles and put Post-it notes inside of them. Yeah. And I just to become obsessed with it. And I self-taught myself pretty much everything. And then at the age of 22, I started to personal train. And that's also the same year I did my very first physique competition.
Oh, okay. Now, just for the people that are listening, the difference between physique and bodybuilding, what is that?
Right. Yeah. So for men's physique, that's typically when you see the guys wear the board shorts. So it's more based off more conditioning, more leanness, more beach body type aesthetics, where bodybuilding is more muscular, more size, more just monsters on stage. And so to each their own. Both categories are phenomenal, and they both have their own type of complications. They're both hard in their own way. But yeah, just completely different for different types of body types, I guess.
Yeah. Did you right away go into the men's physique, or did you try doing the bodybuilding thing too?
I went right into men's physique when I did my first show. Bodybuilding wasn't even really a question for me. I think I was just too small.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just always interesting how when I was coming through, there wasn't a physique, and there was just bodybuilding, and there were there was women's, there were couples. Believe it or not, back then we used to pose. There were categories where we'd pose with the girls together, But otherwise, when I came back out of the sport, I retired after about a 13 or 14-year stint in bodybuilding. And when I came back to the industry, I was really surprised. I competed again. I was just really curious as how that would be at that age later on. And I was amazed at how the actual events changed, in that there were so many categories that are being offered now. When I saw the board category, to be quite honest with you, I thought, what the hell is this all about? What's going on here?
You don't have to train legs. What's going on?
Yeah. And with that being said, how with your routine, do you train legs and how,
I do,
because you don't want big legs, right?
No, I mean, I personally do. It's more for more personal growth for me. And so in 2018, I actually did a classic physique as well. So in 2018, I did men's physique and classic, because I eventually do want to make that transition, because I do love training legs and I like having more of a full body aesthetic going on.
Yeah.
And so that is going to be the goal eventually. And I in 2018, I did get pro qualified for classic as well. I never fully transitioned into pro, but that's definitely going to be the goal probably within the next 2 years, is to fully transition into classic.
Yeah. And have you always just competed in the IMBA, or have you crossed organizations?
Well, my first show was in the NPC. I didn't even know about the IMB. I had no idea there was drug testing organizations. And so you figured this was about, I was 22 and 29 now, so you figure it was about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And just how big these shows are. Back then, they weren't as big as they are now. Even just like with posing and coaching and like the knowledge about how to compete and how to cut. Yeah, it was just so different back then. And I had no coach. All I knew was cut the carbs, do a lot of cardio, keep weightlifting. That's all I knew. I had no coach, and I learned posing through YouTube.
Let me know.
Yeah, and so I prepped myself for that show, did NPC naturally, and I placed 4th out of 13. So
that's a good. That was a good event for you.
It was really good. So I was super happy, but my body went through so much, because like I said, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just killing myself, and I was like, I don't think competing is really for me. And so I held it off for about 4 years. And that's when I met my coach now, Daniel Ziegler, or Dan's Beard on Instagram. And so I ended up meeting him, and we became really close. And he's the one who actually told me about the IMBA. He's like, I'm planning on doing this drug tester organization. And I'm like, oh man, I was like, how big are those shows? Like, are they creditable?
Yeah.
And he's like, there's a show local to you in Corona. He's like, I'm going to do it. It's called the Iron Gladiator. He's like, come by, check it out, and see how you like it. And so I ended up going to that event, and I watched him compete, and I'm like, hey, there's some good competition here. Like it was, I like the way it was set up. I like the way it was ran. I like the way they did their posing, because obviously the IMBA, you're allowed to do different posing than you can in the NPC. And I was like, okay, I really like this. And so, he went on to win that show. He got pro qualified, and about 3 days went by, and I was like, I want to compete for the IBA. I was like, I want to go pro. I was like, I think it's super cool how people are getting drug tested over here. I was like, I'm lifetime natural myself, and it just makes it more of an even playing field.
Yeah.
And that's the main reason why I didn't want to compete, because I didn't know about these organizations. And so for me, I was like, yeah, I could do good in a PC. I could do well. I was like, but I always say it's like taking a knife to a gunfight. I could do well, but the chances of winning are very, very low. And I'm like, I'm not willing to put myself in that situation of taking steroids or any type of other enhancements in order just to get a better placing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not why I got into fitness.
Yeah. The guy that you're talking about, is he from Germany?
No, Daniel Ziegler. He used to be in Costa Mesa. Now he's up in Clovis.
Okay. That's up my area.
Northern.
Yeah. I'm 45 minutes away from Clovis.
Oh yeah. So he's up there with you up in Northern California.
So you guys do like online coaching with each other?
Yeah, so he used to be local. He used to be out in Costa Mesa. That's when we started to train together, and he used to coach me. But once he moved out to Clovis, I have a pretty good knowledge now now I do coaching myself. I teach my own athletes, and so now he's more just the accountability coach. He's those outside eyes looking in, because whenever we get deep into prep, we start to question ourselves, like, am I lean enough? Am I big enough? I need to do more cardio, cut carbs, and so he's kind of those outside eyes looking in. That he's the one who kind of keeps my head on my shoulders. He's like, hey, you look fine. You're on track. Keep doing it. And so, so I still need him. I still enjoy having him, because people are like, you can do it yourself. And I go, you know what? I absolutely probably can, but it's just easier having a coach to do it. And he's been working with me for years. He knows my body. And so he can make those adjustments on the fly that I need.
It's funny that you say that, because when I was competing, I remember, especially towards the end, I would look in the mirror and I wouldn't sometimes know even what I was looking at because it's so subjective. And when you're looking at yourself doing this thing and then you're trying to be objective to your own body. And then there's the tricks that the mirror plays depending on what time it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets down to that. It's like, so you're exactly right. I think you need actually somebody on the outside that knows stuff, that knows how to be objective and that knows how to tell you, hey, you're behind, or you need, you don't want somebody that's a yes man or a yes woman. That's for sure.
Exactly.
You need somebody with that knowledge to guide you. That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. And he won the Natural Olympia in 2016
in the
INBA
physique
for men's physique. Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's another reason I'm like, yeah, he's credible.
Yeah. Is he still competing?
He took this year off. So he did compete in 2018, but he took 2019 season off.
Okay. So then you started competing at 22. Mm-hmm. Then what was your progression after that first show? Did you go to something that was about the same caliber of athlete, or did you start moving up the ladder with each competition?
You know what? After the first show, 22, like I said, I wasn't really planning on competing no more. So I got into a lot of different styles of weightlifting. So I got really big into powerlifting, and at the same time, I got really big into calisthenics. Surprisingly, that is a weird combination of things to get into around the same time. But I felt like it really helped develop practical strength and getting used to moving my body better. And I felt like that transitioned into my bodybuilding progression.
Yeah.
And so for those 4 years, I picked up completely different styles of types of weightlifting. And at the same time, I was still doing my bodybuilding hypertrophy type movements.
Yeah.
And so when I did start to compete again in 2016, I came into the stage with a completely different physique. So in my very first INBA show, I got pro qualified. And I kind of just came out of the blue. Like, it was kind of like, hey, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And so I came in and I did very well kind of right off the bat. So and then once 2016 happened and I realized, hey, I do have potential for this, then I started to go more towards just like more bodybuilding type training.
Yeah. Now your second show, was that there in Corona or somewhere else?
The first show I did with the INBA or second show overall was out in Chula Vista.
Okay.
Yeah, with the INBA.
And then the second one was where?
So I did the Chula Vista, and then I did Team USA as right after that in Vegas.
Vegas, okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get where your progression was. Now, so your third, like when you kept going, your competition in Vegas then was your sixth one, you said?
So that was show number 3.
I mean, you're in the one that you just won.
Oh, the one I just won? Yeah, that was like number 8 or 9 already.
8 or 9.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so were you climbing up the ladder then, like with competition number 4, 5, and 6? Were you doing bigger shows?
Yeah, I started to do bigger shows, and so when I did Team USA after I got pro qualified, I still did it as an amateur, and I competed against my coach Dan.
Yeah.
And he beat me, so he took first, I took second, and William Long did that show as well, but he did it in the pro category. He ended up winning that show as a pro, and that was my first time seeing pros. Was at that Team USA show, and I was an amateur, and I remember seeing these pros. I'm like, holy crap, these guys are natural.
Yeah.
It completely like blew my mind. And obviously William Long, a phenomenal athlete. And so 2016, and so I took 2017 off, and then I came back 2018, and then in 2018 I did 3 shows. So I did Mr. and Mrs. Los Angeles. I did that show. And I took first place in men's physique and classic physique. That's when I did my first classic physique shows. I did both categories, took first place overall in both. And then I went on and I did the World Cup. And that was when I made my pro debut and I got my ass kicked.
So where was the World Cup held?
The World Cup was in LA at Culver City. Yeah, in Culver City.
Yeah.
And so this is 2018. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to make my pro debut. I feel good. I'm coming off this win. And so I showed up and got my ass handed to me.
Which I think is important to have that happen because it resets you.
Oh, absolutely.
In my opinion.
It was an eye-opening experience.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I ended up taking 4th. I think there was about 9 competitors. I ended up taking 4th place, and Mike Safai did that show, and he just took 4th at this year's Olympia, and Yeah, and that show was a big eye opener. And so the weekend after was the Natural Olympia, and so I remember my coach asking me like, "Oh, you're gonna do the Olympia?" I was like, "I don't know." I was like, "I just took fourth place."
Yeah.
I go, "The Olympia is 1 week away. These guys that just beat me are doing the Olympia."
Right.
I was like, "I compete to win." I go, "Yeah, I compete, because it's fun too." I was like, "But I also want to win when I compete."
Yeah.
And he's like, and so he ended up convincing me. He's like, he's like, just do the Olympia. It'll be a good experience. Get your feet wet. He's like, I'm doing it too, so we can do it together.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So 1 week goes by. I kind of change up my peak week a little bit with the way I bring in my carbs, the way I cut the water as well. And I end up coming in and taking second place at the Natural Olympia 1 week later.
And this is the one in Vegas, right?
Yeah, the one in Vegas in 2018 though.
Yeah.
2018. And so I ended up taking second place at this Olympia, and I'm just like, oh crap, like, okay, little tweaks. I made some changes to the peak week, and I came in with a better condition. I came in fuller. And so when the 2019 season came around, we basically just built off of that new peak week that we had designed. And so for 2019, I did 2 shows. I did the Team USA in Vegas, and I ended up taking first place in that show, ended up winning it. And then I ended up doing the 2019 Natural Olympia, where I was victorious as well.
Yeah, you've had a lot of success in a short period of time.
Yeah, very short period. Yeah, so you figure start competing with INBA in 2016 and winning the Olympia 3 years later in 2019.
Yeah, that's a pretty fast ascent.
Yeah.
What was your body weight when you first started competing, and what is it today?
It's almost identical, to be honest. When I did that first NPC show, I weighed in 191, and then when I did the Team USA in 2019, I weighed 190. And then when I did the Olympia 7 weeks later, I weighed in 184.
Oh, okay. So right about the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're fuller and you're filling out more. Is that right?
Yeah, completely different physique.
So when you lost weight for your shows, how much weight were you losing going in? I'm trying to figure out why you probably know this, but I'm going through the process here.
Yeah.
How you're about the same weight, but you're looking a lot better. So how much weight did you lose initially when you were competing for the shows? So, first of all, how far out did you start your pre-contesting? Let's start with that.
In 2019, I did a 17-week prep for Team USA.
Okay.
So which is the longest prep I've ever done.
Yeah, that's long.
Usually I'm around 12, 13 weeks. And so the goal was to try to maintain as much muscle as possible and take the prep a lot slower. Yeah. And not only that, I was coming off my lean bulk where I was weighing around 223.
Okay, so you started at 223.
Yeah.
This is for the 2019?
2019. Week? Yeah, 17 week prep for Team USA.
And then you went down to 184.
No. So Team USA, I weighed in 191.
Okay.
For Team USA.
And that was the one you started at 222? 224?
223, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started off at 223. 17 weeks later, I weighed in 191 at Team USA. Yeah. And then the Olympia was 7 weeks after that, where I weighed in 184.
Okay, so you dropped down a little bit more.
Yeah, pretty big descent. And it was the Olympia, and I knew conditioning was going to be the key to victory for this show. And I knew the competitors that were going to be competing are known for their conditioning. And so for me, I'm like, I had to see who's competing. I had to see what their strengths are, and I need to make it my strength.
Yeah.
If I could take away their strengths and make it mine, then I could potentially have the advantage over them.
I think that's it. There's a book called The Art of War. I think you're following that principle, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really? I got to read it then.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so anyway, so how many competitors were in your class in this last Olympia?
That was 24, I believe.
Yeah, I'll tell you, a couple of those categories were just mind-blowing, to be honest with you. I mean, I come from a time where I competed in the enhanced competitions, and to be honest with you, I didn't see any the condition of the athletes at this show. I was blown away by it, to be quite frank with you. I didn't expect that, but I've been out of the industry for so long, but which leads me into, I want to ask you about I'm really glad that they have an organization that does drug testing. I mean, I was faced at way back when because Joseph, even in our categories, in the competitions that we did back then, even though they were natural, I started in the industry at going to natural events. Mm-hmm. But when I got to the regional level, natural, it was obvious to me that guys were beating the test.
Right.
And we didn't have this kind of testing. you know? So I'd like to know, how does that testing work? What kind of a process do you have to go through as a natural athlete, you know, to make sure that it is an even playing field? Because I think that's a great when they do that. And that's the reason why I was faced with, okay, what do I do now? This is about as far as I can go. And yet I'm competitive. I want to go higher. So in order to do that, I had to go that other route. I mean, that's just the reality of that. And that rubs people the wrong way sometimes, but that was just a fact. And I was good with that. So tell me now, as a natural, how they really leveled that playing field for you guys.
You know what? It's just one of those things, like, people are going to be able to beat it almost all the time. And I'm not sure if you've ever seen that documentary called Icarus on Netflix.
No.
It's a really good documentary. It's about a guy, he's a cyclist, and he's taking steroids, like full-blown steroids, and he's working with a doctor so he could pass his drug test for these cycling events. Yeah. And so I watched that documentary 2018, and it almost made me not want to compete again at the beginning of 2018, because I go, are you kidding me? It's literally that easy to pass a drug test? Yeah. Like, it blew my mind. It blew my mind. And so it almost made me not want to compete in 2018. But at the same time, like, you know what? I still rather compete against a guy who is actually not injecting the day of the show. So I guess it's still more of an even playing field. Is it perfect? Absolutely not.
Nothing's going to be.
It's never going to be. Exactly. No. It's never going to be. And I'm like, the more advanced these tests get, well, you know what? The more advanced these people are going to get cheating as well.
It's a cat and mouse game.
Exactly. And you know, I talked to my coach about it, and he kind of told me the same thing. And he was just like, you know what? It's just part of the game. It's just part of the game. All you can do is come in and bring your best. And if you beat those guys, then more power to you. And, you know, it's a bigger accomplishment.
Yeah. I guess where I'm going with this, maybe a little bit more, is how often do you get tested, just to be more?
Oh, yeah. So usually for the usually for the INBA, all the champions, all the winners, we get urine tested. And so they usually have somebody from WADA there, like a third party person, just chilling at the restroom, and they hang over your shoulder.
Yeah, they go, oh, by the way.
Yeah. And so and then they'll randomly choose just random people out of the show as well. Obviously they look a little suspect, and they'll just be like, hey, you know, here, go take your urine test. Yeah. And so, and as a pro, we are subject to out of competition testing. So it's just part of the agreement once we go pro. Yeah. I've personally never been tested out of competition. I honestly don't mind. They can test me any time of the year. It's not a big deal. But yeah, so we are subject to out of competition testing.
So what about the amateur athletes? No? Different set of rules for them?
Amateurs as well.
So them as well. And because, you know, I watched, of course, you know, Lance Armstrong, that whole story, you know, and I tell you what, I thought the cyclists had one of the strictest at that time testing programs available, because these guys that were in the sport in the off season, they had to pee in a bottle, and they had, you know, of course you're always going to get people trying to beat the system. I understand that. But maybe it's just better than it was before, but I always look at things from a skeptical eye, always have, because man, you know, I was wondering how many times they actually make you guys do that throughout the whole year. I guess what happens with a lot of this testing, organizations say, whether it be NFL or whatever, they say, well, it becomes an issue of money, because it's expensive to do all that. And I get that. But I was just wondering if you guys had to go and you know, in the bottle, you have to show up every week or once every 2 weeks to make sure that you guys are clean. I didn't know if they had gone that far with the organization, like the INBA, or there's other ones too, like NGA and some of these.
Correct.
Are some more strict than others?
With other organizations, I have no idea. I honestly haven't looked into other type of natural organizations and how they do their drug testing. Yeah. But I know a lot of them either go through the WADA, like the INBA, or through USADA. I know those like the two really big ones.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get back to some training now. As far as your general, let's say your off-season training. Yeah. What is your protocol? What's your strategy? In other words, what's your how many reps are you doing when you go into the gym? How many sets, and how long a time do you spend in the gym?
Well, time-wise, I'm usually there. If I'm doing cardio, about two hours. Really no more than 2 right now. but my training off and on season are relatively the same. It's just obviously I'm bringing in more calories. I'm able to lift heavier. So my training per se doesn't really change too much. I keep it pretty much bodybuilding. I always focus on the muscle hypertrophy. And my rep ranges usually range. I usually do pyramid sets still for the most part, but I never really go lower than about 5 reps. And I'm talking about 5 reps, and that's like true failure. Possibly like one more in the tank at 5 reps. And so my sets are pretty high. I usually do around 5 to 6 sets per exercise. And I'll start off, obviously pretty high rep, about 12, 15 reps, then move up in weight and move down in reps from there. And I do superset a lot with body weight movements. So I do a lot of pull-ups, a lot of push-ups, a lot of body weight dips. And that's kind of been my bread and butter since the beginning, is a lot of the body weight movements. I warm up with them, I burn out with them at the very end, and then I superset them in between as well.
Okay. So you're when you're saying you spend 2 hours in the gym, how much of that is weight training?
Majority of it is weight training. So I usually train one primary muscle part and then one secondary body part. So if it's my chest day, I'm also going to be training a little bit of biceps as well. And then every other day, I usually add like a type of core movement, and core, not just abs, more like, lower back as well. I still consider lower back and oblique core as well.
And you're saying that the majority. So how much cardio then are you doing? Are you doing any cardio in the off season?
Yeah. So I'm still doing cardio off season. So I do no less than 3 days a week, and I'm doing just about 20 minutes on the Stairmaster.
Okay. That's that's during your off season.
During the off season. And during, obviously, on season, where I'm doing about 40 minutes to an hour, about 5-6 days a week.
And how many days do you train now a week? Is it 4 or 5 days, 6 days?
About 5-6 days.
Yeah,
about 5-6 days. That 6th day, if I do push that one, it's usually just like a more like an active recovery day. Like, I'll just go and do a lot of body weight movements. I'll do a lot of stretching, foam rolling, and whatnot.
And then what about your caloric intake? Where do you keep your calories in the off? By the way, I think that one of the smart things that you're doing is that your weight training doesn't change much between the off season and the pre-contesting. I think that's a smart thing, because the body doesn't like change. Your physiology is amazing in that it can adapt to its environment. That's what it's innate to its nature, but it doesn't like it. As far as being efficient. So I think you're really smart in going that direction.
Thank you.
What about your calories? How does that look in the off season compared to pre-contest?
Well, I'm actually still reverse dieting since November. So I do.
Hold on. Wait a minute. I haven't heard of this before. Reverse dieting?
Reverse dieting.
Oh, yes. You got to bring the old man into the mix now. I haven't heard this one before.
So basically what reverse dieting is, it's also considered basically just metabolism recovery. So after you do a very intense cut, you don't want to load yourself with your bulk calories right away. You want to slowly progress your calories up the same way you brought them down, so your metabolism has a chance to catch up, cause a type of metabolic damage. And so when I used to do shows back when I was young and dumb, I never used to do the reverse diets, and right after show, I would just right away go into my bulk, bring in 3,500, 4,000 calories, and I'd put on a bunch of body weight, and when it was time to re-lose that weight, it would be very difficult. And so I started to research a lot, and I learned about reverse dieting. And so basically what reverse dieting is right when you're done with the comp, you raise your calories up a little bit of a bulk. So you figure a week of competition, I was around 1,400 calories, very low, horrible.
Yeah, I understand.
So right away, I went up to 1,800 calories about 3 days after my show. So I'm still eating clean. I'm putting in a little more pellet friendly foods.
But you mean junk foods? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, junk foods. Yeah, try to be nice with it.
Come on, that's it.
And so and I'm still tracking my macronutrients. Still tracking my macros the same way I would as if I was on prep, just with a higher caloric intake. And so every week I bring up my calories anywhere from 50 to 100 calories. Sometimes I do a bigger jump, 150 to 200, depending on how I'm feeling. So it's all based off how I feel. I'm basing it off my performance in the gym. I'm basing it off my libido, and I'm basing it off my strength and stamina. And so week to week, I'm slowly raising the calories up. So Towards mid-November, around when the time the Olympia was, like I said, I was around 1,800 calories. Today, I'm at 2,900 calories.
Yeah.
So it's almost November, December, January, 3 months, and I'm still almost at my maintenance calories, which is around 3,000 to 3,100.
And how does your body look now compared to the last time you did a show? Because with me, every time I did a competition and a cut, the next time I started doing my bulk cycle, it would take longer for me to put on body fat. I get at a heavier weight with muscle.
Yeah.
Or I'd actually start putting on that. I always try to stay at around 10, 12% body fat in the off season back then, because I made the mistake the first time I bulked. I mean, I got 50 pounds overweight,
Yeah.
I'll just get bigger. The bigger, the better. I got up to 300 pounds. I mean, I competed at 250.
Oh, geez.
But when I went to cut for that show, that weight, it was just like a wasted movement. I mean, your body you have to lose so much muscle that you put on to get that leanness, So, how does your body look now after this cut? I mean, I would assume that you look even better at this weight than you did before.
Correct. And so, so every time I'm doing it, I'm learning the body better. My food options are getting better as well. And so, I call it like a lean bulk or a clean bulk, whatever you want to call it. So like I said, I'm kind of still eating the foods that I eat while I'm on prep, like the chicken, rice, potatoes, and whatnot. It's just a higher volume of those foods. Yeah. And by doing it like that, the weight distributes better. It's not just all in the gut. It distributes a lot better throughout the entire body. It looks more proportioned. And so a lot of these people, they don't even know that I'm bulking or that I'm going into a bulk. And they're like, oh, you still like getting ready for a shoot or something like that? I'm like, no. And I'm like, it's just the food options. Yeah. It just reacts better with the body. And so, so exactly like you said. So every time I do this, the body does look a little bit better, even at a higher body weight and body fat percentage.
Yeah. What about your protein intake? What's your stance on that?
Yeah. So during the cut, my protein obviously goes up. I'm around 290 to 300 grams a day during the cut. And that's usually around the last 3 weeks of the cut when I start to hit those really low calorie deficits. Mm-hmm. And right now I'm around 230 now.
230 grams a day of protein.
Mm-hmm. Around 230, 240.
Yeah, and you weigh how much?
Right now I'm at 212.
So almost a gram per 1 pound of body weight.
Yeah, about 1.1, 1.2 grams per pound.
Yeah. And where does the main source of your protein come from?
Majority of food. If I do a shake, it's usually about one a day, if that. But majority of food.
Yeah, and then what's the rest of your diet look like? So if you're eating that much protein, then where's the carbohydrates and your fat intake?
So right now my carbs are at 300 grams flat. They just moved up from 285, so I'm at 300 flat now. But the carbs and my fats are at 48 grams.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then does that, when you start, are you that athlete that when you're now competing in your pre-contesting, at the very end, do you start manipulating carb restriction, like carb loading, carb depletion? How does that? You're very into your towards yours.
So I really don't do the weird the carb cycling like some people do, especially getting closer to a show. But just peak week is really the only week where carbs kind of fluctuate a lot. Mm-hmm. And so at the very beginning of the peak week, I'll carb load, and then I'll chop them away, and then I'll backload right before the show, and I'll kind of refill the body back up with the glycogen.
Yeah, it's tricky that last week, you know that?
Yeah,
crazy tricky.
Yeah, but I'd rather backload than front load heavy because it's easier to bring carbs in than to take them out.
Yeah.
And so around that Thursday night is usually when I start to bring the carbs in, and about every hour or two, I'll kind of look at the body, see how I'm looking. And so it's a lot easier to get those carbs in at the end of the week than, so I know some people, they'll heavy front load. Yeah. And they'll just kind of write off those carbs until show day. I'm like, that's risky. That's tough.
Yeah, it is. And it's really, really amazing how when you get to that close to a competition, how fast your body responds to everything that you're doing. I mean, within minutes sometimes, especially with a diet, because I used to see that happen. It's like, oh, look a little flat, bring a little carbs in, and and to keep them smoothing out, I use fat as a really good resource, because fat in a diet, what it does, it absorbs sugar, And so if you want to slow the release of the sugar, this is, my process of going through. It's like, okay, I need to bring some sugar in, but I want to be careful that it doesn't spill over into the subcutaneous or it smooths me out. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that the people behind the scenes really don't understand. They probably shouldn't, but they, it looks like, because you hear this, well, it doesn't seem like it's that hard for you to do all this, whether it be weight training or even the diet, but there's a lot that goes into this stuff.
Yeah, there is a lot, and it's so technical and it's so science based, and like it's the little things that can make or break you.
Ooh, I mean, that last week can break you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever, I've ruined stuff in the last week,
Oh my gosh. I don't know what I would do if that happened. Luckily, all my peak weeks have been relatively okay. I mean, there's a few times I came in a little bit flat, but I guess for men's physique, coming in a tiny bit flat isn't too bad compared to bodybuilding.
Well, even the bodybuilding. I mean, like one of the things that Dorian Yates was, his idea was, coming in a little bit flat, is actually better than being where you're carrying too much body fat.
Right.
You sacrifice a little bit of lean weight, but there's a tricky point right there where you completely flatten out, and then you're holding water. That's the nightmare. One of the, do you know who Tom Platz is?
Yeah, of course.
The Golden Eagle. Yeah. Well, he was him and I wrote a book called Big Beyond Belief. That was one of my training courses, and Tom actually came on and was a part of that. He was sort of the he tagged along, or was kind of the main guy in this case, because I wrote the book, but he was very famous during these days.
Yeah,
so I brought him on.
area.
Yeah. So he helped me with when I went transition from regional to the national side of the competition. He gave me some really good information that sounds like you've been sort of a student of. He said, most people, what they do is they keep trying, they keep trying to get better and better and better all the way to the end of the show. And he says, you think of it like this. The metaphor was, think of it like an airplane landing. That competition is like an airplane landing, nice and smooth. And that's how you should come into the show, not being smooth, but to come in. And yet so many of us, I can do a little bit better. I can do a little bit better. And what you end up doing is crash landing into the show.
Absolutely.
And it happened to me, more than one time until, Mr. Tom Platz kind of straightened me out that way. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. And that sounds like to me why you're probably having pretty even results when you're coming in. You're keeping away from all those big swings.
Yeah. And it's credit to having a coach again.
Yeah.
It's big credit. Otherwise, because the thing, people, they get into their peak week and they hit that panic button.
Oh,
and they're like, I got to cut more water. I got to load up more carbs. And they come in spilt over.
Yeah.
And, oh man, it breaks my heart when I see that, because I'll see people at the beginning of their peak week and I'll see them on stage and I'm like, you're a different person.
Yeah.
Like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like it breaks my heart, because these preps are not easy and it takes a lot of time and sacrifice. So when I see that happen, man, that's my worst nightmare. And so I learned very early on just to kind of just listen to the coach. He plans it. Just trust the process.
At some point, that's what you have to do, and that's the tough part right there.
Yeah.
What about your water intake at the very end? What do you do with that?
So I do still manipulate water. I know there's a lot of it's kind of like a gray area. Some people nowadays are not manipulating water. I still do the water manipulation. I feel like it works for me. I do tend to carry a lot of water. And so I still do tend to cut that out. So at the beginning of the week, same thing, I'll carb and water load. And so I'm bringing in about 3 gallons of water the very first day of the peak week. And then every day thereon, I start to cut out the water slowly all the way up until the day of show. And so, the day of show, I bring in pretty much no liquids besides espresso. That's pretty much it. So I still do the water manipulation, but it's been working for me.
Well, the thing about it is, and you start learning, is that even though we're all humans, there's so many ways to go about, getting yourself into that peak position.
Oh yeah.
And condition. And that's just the way it is. It'd be, I guess, a lot easier if we could just, if we all trained like Arnold and could look like him, then wouldn't that be
get the
nice?
same results?
Yeah, and it just doesn't work that way, And that's the reason why you have to be, in order for you to continue to have your results, you need to be a student of the game. Yeah. And if you're not, if you're just that person, because I've dealt with a lot of guys over the years and pros, so many of them, at least back then, were not in complete control of what they were doing. They were letting their coach, which is fine, make all the moves, but they really didn't know what they were actually doing. And maybe that was good for them at that point. But I just think that the more you become a student of the game, because I've learned this working with athletes, because in my background, I've worked with lots of Major League Baseball, NFL, guys like that who make their living at this stuff. And if you don't really understand it to that degree, your results that you're going to get are going to be sort of up and down instead of being more consistent. And I can tell that you are definitely a student of the game. I want to switch over now you're doing your personal training. What kind of a clientele are you going after, or is it just anybody?
I do it all. I do general health, and I also do competitors as well. Both are fun in their own way. I love doing just general health because the average person, they get phenomenal results. It's usually people who are beginners that come my way. And then the competitors are fun too because they're so advanced already. Like obviously, if you're making the mental decision that you want to compete, that's probably because you have pretty good consistency with your workouts and your nutrition, and you just need help perfecting everything. And so both have their challenges, because these people who compete are also very hard to kind of rewire, and they question a lot of stuff for the right reasons, but so they're usually kind of stuck in old ways, and I have to kind of like, okay, we're not doing things that way no more. This is competition prep's a little bit different. And so they both have their own challenges. And obviously people who are new to fitness that I train, it's very hard for them to stick to nutrition, for them to stay consistent with the workouts and whatnot. So they're both fun in their own ways, and they both have their rewards at the end.
Now, do you train people at a certain gym? Or I know you said you're doing some online coaching now, but Correct. Are you also training clients in a gym?
I do, but it's super minimal. I literally have 2 clients that I train in person. Other than that, the majority of my training now is online.
Okay, so walk me through that process, because I've had personal training studios now for 38 years, and I still have one that I still have going. And so walk me through that, because like with me, what is happening with me, and I do stuff online too, but most of my stuff is actually inside the gym. And so when somebody comes to me, they come to my office and we do a consultation.
Right.
And that whole point of that consultation is to fact find, to see what the stated goal is, because obviously you need to know stuff like that. And so how do you do that online, where you can actually, because I know that with people that are, especially the newbies, the ones that have never done that, they need a heck of a lot of hands-on coaching from what I've seen. So how in the world can you be an online coach? And I'm just curious, because I don't do a lot of it. How do you how can you be a successful online coach with somebody who is there for health and fitness? They've never done weight training. How does that work for you?
Yeah, so the beginner's always the hardest, hands down, because you do need to hold their hand almost the entire way. And so before I even go through the process of payment, I ask them a buttload of questions as why you're doing it. Have you ever worked out before? How's your nutrition? How is your support system around you? How's your work? How's your family? Are you going to have time to even meal prep? Like, I have to see where their mindset is at. And I have no problem turning a client down because I don't feel like they're ready. Yeah. Absolutely not. And I've done it. Yeah, I've done it plenty of times. And I'll be like, you know what? Reach back out when you are ready. Whenever I feel like you're mentally ready, then you can reach back out and we'll get started.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically what I do when it comes to the online training, I do it all through this spreadsheet that has all the workouts. It has their days, their workouts, and all their rep ranges. And then I attach YouTube videos for any workout they might be confused with. And same thing when it comes to macronutrients. Thank God for YouTube, right? There's everything. You can find all the information on there. And so basically I call it the meal guide for dummies. And so I send them their macros, and then I send them sample meal guides, and I show them how they could manipulate the nutrition with the foods that they like to hit their macros. Yeah. And I put it into super simple terms for them. And I do a lot of FaceTiming with my clients as well, especially the newbies. Yeah. And so I do FaceTime with them, and I'll have like papers set out, and I'll kind of like show them different types of charts and how to track macros and how to manipulate the nutrition. And yeah, it's just one of those things with the new people is you have to be on top of it. You have to be on top of it. You have to hold their hand. And so for the new people, I have them constantly doing check-ins. And check-ins are very easy. They just send their weight to me. Like,
Yeah.
send me your weight, and then send me do the MyFitnessPal, and then send me a screenshot of their macros at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then I'll see, like, it's like, oh man, I gained a pound. I gained 2 pounds in one day. I'm like, well, let's see what you ate.
Yeah.
Well, you had a bunch of ramen noodles, which is high in sodium. You're retaining a lot of water now.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as you know, like I'm the same way. I have a fitness app that I put people on.
Okay.
I don't have to see them. I just have them do. I have them weigh on a certain day, and I just do measurements because that's all I need to see. And then just when their weight fluctuates like that, I mean, you're doing the same, basically the same thing. Because I start looking at, what it is that if you're really following the program, because I know how many calories you need, as you do. I know that this is not physiologically. You're not going to put on 4 pounds unless you're just ate like 8 ounces worth of sodium, which held all
exactly.
That kind of stuff. So if I'm your newbie, walk me through this. So what do you want from me, Joseph? Because I'm going to go ahead and I'm overweight and I'm intimidated. And so what do you want me to go do tomorrow and the next, for the first week? What am I going to go do?
So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you your age, your height, your weight. I'm going to get your simple details. I'm going to send you a spreadsheet where you're going to put all your measurements. You're going to measure your arms, your waist, your hips, your legs, both quads, both biceps, all those simple measurements. I'm going to ask you what your goals are. And I'm going to ask you what's been preventing you from these goals. And this is all through email. So they're filling this out, and I ask them to explain everything in detail. And I ask them, what's their why? Like, why do you want to get in shape? Like, what's the motivation behind this? Okay. Like, is it a health problem? Do you just want to look better, feel better?
Yeah.
Like, what's their driving factor behind this? And so
here's mine. Okay. I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to do like, I just want to feel better. I'm going to lose a little bit of weight, tighten up a little bit. That's kind of the general, the person coming for fitness. So what do I have to go do? What's my first thing? Week number 1, what am I going to do?
Week number 1, you're learning the basics.
Okay. And what does that mean?
So we're going to go to the gym. I'm going to give you a very simple split when it comes to weightlifting. You're probably going to be doing a majority of machines the very first week, because I want you to learn how to actually move the weight. Yeah. And I don't want you to injure yourself using a lot of free bar movements. And so we're going to be splitting up. We're going to be doing a push, pull, and then a leg movement. And that's going to separate day by day. And you're going to be doing a lot of bodyweight movements as well. So you're going to be warming up on the assisted pull-up machine. You're going to be doing 5 sets, your very first workout of assisted pull-ups. So keep the weight light, focus on form. And if you need help, I'm going to send you a video on how to do a proper pull-up. And that way you can start to master the body. Yeah. Mastering the body is a huge thing. We want to make sure the joints are warmed up as well. And we're going to progress from there. So we'll see how the first week goes. We'll see how sore you're feeling. We'll see what workouts you had the most difficult with. And then we'll kind of progress from there about every 2 to 3 weeks.
So in the first week, then, do you normally check with people just to see where they're at?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the first day.
And do you have them, along with their weight training, are they doing a cardio program as well?
Yeah, so I have them do cardio typically every other day. And I go, whatever cardio machine of your choice. I go, if you like to do outdoor stuff, that's totally fine as well. But if you want to go in the gym, pick any machine you want at moderate intensity for about 20 minutes post-workout. If you don't have time post-workout, then you can do intermittent fasting cardio as well.
Mm-hmm. And what does that intermittent fasting cardio mean? Again, I want to just, for the people that are listening and watching this, I want them to know what that means.
Yeah, fasted cardio, meaning that you're exercising without any type of food in the system. So you're doing it on an empty stomach. Mm-hmm. You can bring in water, you can bring in caffeine if you like. But obviously, if you're doing the caffeine, you're not adding creamer and sugar to your coffee. It's just be straight up coffee. And then you go and do your cardio. And
then, of course, I'm doing a diet as well, right?
Correct.
Now, are you going to put me on this really strict diet, or can I eat the foods I like? Obviously, what I know is that it's about portion control more than it is, and this is probably a little bit controversial, because I think a calorie is a calorie, and because physiologically, I know exactly the process of by which these calories are broken down. So I'm not big on necessarily clean eating. Mm-hmm. And yet I think clean eating is a cool thing to do. Don't get me wrong, because I think that's, but so how to get me started off so you're not overwhelming the hell out of me. What are you going to do with my diet? Like for the week number 1, I need to lose about, 20 pounds. And so what is that going to look like on my diet? Do I have to give up a bunch of stuff? Because I'm concerned about that,
Yeah, absolutely.
As a newbie.
Yeah. So week number 1, I'm more focused on you actually meal prepping. That's really gonna be the main thing for week number 1. I'm not gonna be tripping too much on what the food consists of, and that's the beauty of the if it fits your macros type of macro-based eating, is that you can pick whatever foods you want as long as it fits your macronutrients. I don't care. So if you want to get that donut, if you want to do that burger, as long as it's trackable, you can have it.
Yeah.
And so you're able to have these savory foods that you enjoy and still stay within your calorie range.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. So week number 1, I'm going to give you your macro count. I'm going to give you your overall total calories. And then I'm going to give you, like I said, I'm going to give you a food list of all these different foods you could choose from, all your protein, carbs, and fats, the most common type of things. And then if there's other foods you want to get in there, if there's foods that you really enjoy, just let me know and I'll manipulate your meal plan for that.
Yeah. And then if I'm that guy that, I'm too damn lazy to meal prep, how are you going to overcome that? I think you've already said it. You said basically if you want to eat whatever, as long as it meets the macros. Is that how you solve that problem for that person?
Yeah, as long as it's trackable. I mean, obviously there's flame broilers and Waba grills and even Subways now. And you can track almost all that through the MyFitnessPal app. Or I would say to look and see if there's a meal prep company around you that could prep your meals for you, and then you can pick them up or get them delivered.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of ways now to get around it. I mean,
luckily.
The thing about this is crazy. When I was doing all this tracking of calories, I had to go out and I forget the name of the damn book that I went and got, but it was actually now we have these fitness apps and these things that seamlessly do it for us. But I had to learn it from, get in the book. I'd have to weigh my food, and then I have to go look in this book to see yes. And I mean, that was really learning it the hard way, you know? So with all these different, technology in that sense, I think has been remarkable. And, I tell people when I'm working with them, I said, and I'm the same way when I said, look, I want to make sure that you have to be a participant in this. And if you're not willing to do that, and I even tell people I can get you in great shape in doing training workouts three times a week, because we're manipulating, as the diet and all these things, But if you're not willing to participate in this, you can't expect miracles, and you're not, and I think you mentioned this at the beginning here, at the end of the show, is that you're not ready for it quite yet.
Yeah.
The personal trainer, it's really important that you point out and really paint a picture of reality to that individual, because they're going to be very disappointed, because most people fail at this stuff.
Yeah.
If you take a look at the
majority.
Stats, if you take a look at the stats of people that go into these open gyms like an In Shape, and they do it on their own, and 27 and a half days, they're out of the gym, because at that point already, they're thinking, I've done all this damn work and I'm getting very little result, and that's just not the way it works. And it's a hard reality. So I think part of what we need to do in the industry is being legit trainers, because there's a whole bunch of trainers out there that are not legit. I call them social media stars. And I like social media. I think it belongs out there. There's a lot of good stuff that's out there, but there's a lot of information that's just not right, and even dangerous for my view. Part of the reason why I came back out into the industry again is because, one day I started reading Google News, and then they have all these so-called experts, in the industry. And hell, I can just tell by the way that the article is being written that these guys are not experts, and they're giving this potentially dangerous information. So I think it's really important, and I can tell that by talking to you in 5 minutes that you're that guy that knows what he's talking about. I would say that anybody that, wants to come get some really good advice should come see you. And I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't necessarily say if you weren't that guy, I might not necessarily tell that to your face, but I wouldn't give you this compliment and a deserved one that I am right now, because I can tell you're legit and you pay attention to the details, and people that are working with you should be happy with that and trust themselves with you. That being said, how many clients are you working with online? Are you able to work with online?
Yeah, so I usually keep it around 10 total. If the client seems like they're a little more advanced, or if it's somebody that I know personally, that I'll kind of like bump it up to like 11 or 12 for those type of people, just because I don't have to hold their hand so much. Usually around the limit I kind of cap off is around is 10 or that 11 or 12 person.
Mm-hmm. And is this something you do for a full-time living?
No, so I manage a supplement shop. That's and so the online training I typically do on the side.
I see. And okay, well, listen, I think that this has been a good interview. You've educated, I think, our people that are listening, and I think you've done a really good job in explaining, your process. And I think you've been really fair about that. It's not just one way to skin that cat. And I would be in total agreement with you, because sometimes, and these are usually the people that aren't really know as much as they think they do. And I was one of those people way back when. And some will say even to this day, but the more you get into this thing, the more you understand that it's not usually black and white as much as it is gray, because the fact that what we talked about, we're all different that way. And you're a very good trainer and you're a very good coach when you understand and start learning about people, that not everybody is the same. And if you try to convert people to your ideology and your way of thinking, that's one way, you're not going to get the most out of people, because the great coaches out there, whether it be in personal training or even like in the NFL, the great ones know how to adapt to their the athletes that they have at that particular time, instead of saying that, the difference would be, hey, this is my way and the only way, and you have to adapt to that. Those kinds of coaches will never be as successful as the ones who are smart and try to figure this thing out based on the client that they're dealing with.
Yeah, and I always say too, I go, the biggest term in fitness is it depends. Yeah. that's the biggest, like, it's such a sucky word. I go, everything in fitness works until it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because it's true. Everything works for different people. And it's one of those things that you have to try. Yeah. And if it works,
and that's part of the process.
That's part of the process. Trial and error.
Yeah. And if you can't live with that, then you need to go sew something, or go bowling, or do something else, because this is not going to work. No, I like that. I like your attitude. I like your energy. Now, listen, we're going to wrap this thing up. And in the meantime, is there anything that you would like to promote on our program?
Just make sure you guys follow me on Instagram at fit_fluential. I also have my own podcast as well called the PR Podcast, where we talk about fitness. Yeah. And so if you guys want to give that one a listen, I'd really appreciate it. And if you guys need any type of online coaching, or if you guys are looking to possibly do a show, feel free to contact me.
Nice. Well, I give you a thumbs up, Joseph. I think you're on the right track. You look good, and continued success.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. All right,
man. Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Serious Growth Podcast. For more episodes like the one you just listened to, subscribe to us on your mobile podcast app and leave us a review. If you'd like to reach out, you can find us online at seriousgrowth.com. Until next time, train smart and train hard.